Welcome to Sense Style. I'm Stuart. Today I'm talking about 3 fragrances from the house of Nusik. Now these fragrances were sent to me. I did not pay for them. And so that could lead to some skepticism, and it's totally understandable. However, it's important to know what goes on behind the curtain if you've got a fragrance YouTube channel. Over the last 6 months, my channel started to do really well, and I've got a number of collaboration offers, most of which I turned down. I turned down 2 just this week, and about a year ago I had a much bigger offer from a much bigger house, but I don't like their fragrances, so I turned them down, and they were really unprofessional as well. Nusik is not like that. Their clones are accurate, they're very professional, their fragrances are incredibly long-lasting. I have 4 of them now, and they are some of the longest-lasting fragrances that you can get. When they say extrait de parfum, they mean it. Nusik is a house I can really get behind. I have no problem taking some time to talk about some of their fragrances. Let's get to it. Fragrance number 1 is Nusix Atink, and this is a clone of Xerjoff's Naxos. And if you've ever tried Naxos before, you will understand my reaction when I tried this for the very first time. Because when I did try this, I had never tried Naxos before. So I'm sitting on the couch, sprayed some on my hand, and immediately I stood up and I started pacing back and forth, smelling and going, this is incredible. And I was sent it for free. I didn't really understand what was going on. I have since looked this up. I've compared the notes. This is a Naxos clone. It now all makes sense to me. When I realized that this was a Naxos clone, I picked up a Naxos sample. I've been comparing the 2 over the last week. Now, the reason I didn't figure out right away that this was Naxos was because I was expecting Naxos to be a sweet tobacco. And they're not. This is not a sweet tobacco exactly. Both have tobacco notes that are way in the background. They're there, but it's mostly about the sweetness. If you look at something like La Male Elixir, yeah, it's got some La Male DNA, but it's mostly about how sweet the fragrance is, how beautiful the sweetness is. That's exactly what you've got here. So think of this more as cinnamon, vanilla, and honey rather than, a typical sweet tobacco. Then you'll understand the appeal, because this is fantastic. Now, there are a couple of tiny differences between the fragrance. Naxos has vanilla. This has vanilla orchid. So this is just slightly more floral. And then the open with Naxos, there's a lavender citrus open that you don't get here. Now that lasts about 5 minutes. All the notes are very similar. All the floral notes are very similar, but I definitely pick up a more floral element here that I think gives this a little bit of creaminess that Naxos doesn't have, but it affects the projection here. It doesn't project quite as much as Naxos does, but in terms of longevity, it's unbelievably similar because this is a Nusik fragrance and they really do last a long time. This opens with cinnamon, with honey, amber, grapefruit, and lime. The mid is jasmine, lavender, and tobacco. The base here is vanilla orchid, tonka, coumarin, cedar, and musk. And notice the coumarin again. So we're talking about them trying to bring back the projection to make it more subtle, a little bit more sophisticated. They did that on purpose. You don't use coumarin unless you mean to. So they're going for a lighter projection, a more sophisticated feel. So, that really does suit the audience. Now, let's talk about presentation a bit. It's always really nice with Middle Eastern houses. That's something that they definitely value more. The box here, really, really nice. You always get a little card that comes with it, with all the notes. I do think that's a nice touch. And the bottle, the juice here is honey colored, and this is meant to be a honeycomb. The thing I love the most, though, about the presentation has got to be the atomizers. Universally, there's some kind of pressurization here, so you get a very even spray, much, much higher quality than I certainly was expecting. Yeah, this one, great. Fragrance number 2 is Nusix Raheik, and this is a clone of Jean Paul Gaultier's Scandal for Women. That's a really popular fragrance. Now, I realize that most people watching the channel are going to be men. However, this is a really pleasant fragrance that I think would make a wonderful gift. And I'm going to say something I've never said before. I got my hands on a Scandal sample, and I've compared the 2, and this is the very first clone that I think is actually better than the original, and it's very easy why. Scandal is a honey and caramel based fragrance, but it's really more than anything a honey based fragrance. Look at the two fragrances that I've got here, both from the Middle East, both have honey, but look at what they're selling here. They're both meant to look like honeycombs. And that's because in the Middle East, honey is a big deal. For the last 50 years, honey has been a focal point in their fragrances. It's much more valued there than in the West. So they know how to do honey really well, and they've done it here. Because I think Scandal, the two of them are very similar, but the Scandal has a lot more floral notes. It's also got a beeswax note, and they both kind of do the same thing. The 3 floral notes and the beeswax flatten out the scent a little bit. So what they've done here is the opposite. They've only got 1 floral note. There's no beeswax note, and they've added a vanilla note. So they're going for the sweetness here. And that makes for an explosive opening that I think is certainly better than Scandal. And I think overall, it's actually better than the original. This opens with honey, apricot, grapefruit, and lemon. It's got caramel, coconut, and magnolia in the mid. This has got musk, sandalwood, and vanilla in the base. And the presentation here is another knockout. Very nice, the nicest bottle. And this little bee here, that's metal. So they went all out with the presentation. And again, the atomizer, top notch. And the box itself is a little bit different. It's shaped like a cupboard. You pull it out like this. You've got the card in here again. And again, you can see everything is about honey here. Performance, I mean, it's not as strong as some of the other clones, but it is stronger than Scandal. Fragrance number 3 is Nusix Mahab, and this is a clone of Amouage's Guidance. And that is a fruity floral fragrance that's very feminine and very, very long lasting. But we're talking about Nusix here, so no problem. This is the strongest of all the fragrances that I've gotten. This is like at least 18 hours. It kind of gets absurd. It's a very, very strong fragrance, and it had to be because that's one of the hallmarks of Guidance. This is very, very close to Guidance. Of the 3, this is the closest to the original. They are not exactly alike. There are some very small differences. For instance, there are 3 florals in this, the same 3 florals in Guidance, but the florals come off a little stronger here, and so it is more of a floral fragrance, so it comes off a little bit smoother than you get from Guidance. Guidance is also woodier than this. There's more sandalwood in Guidance than there is here, but as I said, ultimately very, very close in every way possible. Close in projection, close in scent, close in longevity. One thing I really like about this is the scent is pretty much ageless. At the moment, among men, there's a big divide between the young guys and the older guys. They like a different style of scent. Women have it to a certain extent too. It's not quite as sharp a difference, but this one is really ageless. What this really is about is femininity. Everything here is pink. Everything in Guidance is pink. And so it's a very feminine scent. And if you're 18 or 80 as a woman and you're very feminine, everybody is going to like this. I think another important factor here, though, is this is cloning an Amouage fragrance. That's one of the most expensive fragrance houses that there is. So the gap between the price of something like this and the price of Amouage is huge. You're really going to get your money's worth getting something like this. This opens with incense, red fruits, and fennel. You're going to get osmanthus, jasmine, and peach in the mid. There's sandalwood, rose, and musk in the base. You can tell by the bottle just how feminine it is. I mean, there's pink everywhere. There's pink on the box. Again, very, very nice box. You've got, another little card, but yeah, a lot of pink, and everything feels higher quality than it should. So I really hope you guys enjoyed that. It's a little bit different. And I'm very, very careful with who I do collaborations with. I really have turned down a lot of collabs because I have to respect what I'm talking about. And it's impossible. It's impossible not to respect certainly the quality, the similarities to the originals, and especially the longevity and the performance of the clones from Nusix. It's a really good house. So different video, and I'll try and space out the collabs so that I don't I don't overwhelm you with them. But yeah, if you watch this video to the end, I really appreciate your time. Thanks very much for watching.